Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Monday, October 25th. LA Galaxy coming off of a disappointing 2-2 draw with FC Dallas. We'll talk a little bit about that game, tell you why the LA Galaxy floundered in the first half, somehow found their form in the second half, and why that hurts them a lot in terms of locking up that playoff position. We're going to have 3 games left. We got to talk about SKC coming up on Wednesday. We have some other news and interesting tidbits to get to as well. So a lot of stuff to get to, a lot of things we need to talk about to help me do all of that. He's back in the saddle once again. It's Mr. Kevin Baxter. Kev, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, it rained here today. I was scared. I didn't know what it was.
I was going to say,
I thought the earth was leaking or something. Do pandas like rain? I don't know.
They live in a forest, right? So I would imagine that they do. I mean,
they live in zoos mainly.
True as that is as well. How's everything, Kevin? How was your week? How was everything for you?
Good. I went to see Premier League live. That was kind of cool at the Coliseum. There were 8,500 people that came over the weekend to see that. That was pretty neat. A lot of giveaways. If it's free, it's me. So I was happy with that. But you started the show talking about disappointing 2-2 draw. You were whining when the Galaxy were on a 9-game unbeaten streak, and now they have a 9-game winless streak. Now they have a 4-game unbeaten streak, and you're whining again.
Yeah,
you're a hard guy to please.
I mean, let's make it very clear, very simple, Kevin. Whenever you look at that matchup against FC Dallas, that should have been a win. I don't care when it was, where they played it. I don't care if they played it on the face of the moon. It doesn't matter. The Galaxy should have won that game. Now, that being said, I also consider it a minor miracle, Kevin, that they actually tied that game in the second half as well with how poorly they played in the first half. So, I mean, you can talk about a whole bunch of things and say, just general. If you were there and you saw them come back, it was probably, you're probably doing what I did, which was saying, oh, wow, they got a draw and that's about as good as you could hope for. And we'll call that, as you'll call that what it is. It's better than a loss, right? So you look at that and say better than a loss, but there's no way going into that game, the Galaxy should have been fighting for their lives. And by the way, I think that the point they got against Dallas, and we'll talk about this as we go through, the point they got against Dallas might be the point that eventually gets them into the playoffs, and sort of it crosses that line. I think it's going to be very tight down the way. We've talked a whole bunch about how there's difficult games coming up, but that game against Dallas showed me 2 things, is how poorly the LA Galaxy can play when they really don't feel interested, and how direct and how relentless they can be against bad opposition in the second half. And so between those 2 things, I mean, it's a mixed bag. So yeah, I am hard to please, I guess.
Well, here, imagine this. I'm going to become contentious with you once again. Yes, it could be the point that gets them in the playoffs. It could be the 2 points they didn't get, could be the ones that keep them out of the playoffs. To me, it showed how important Julian Araujo is. He was out with the yellow card, the card suspension, and they really missed him in that first half. Sebastian Lletget said some interesting things post game, though. He talked a little bit about, and it was obvious, the grit that they showed, the fight that they showed to come back and to actually get the draw and the point that you talk about that may be important down the road. That was impressive. But then he also said about the first half, it's like we should not need a wake-up call this time of year. We know what we're playing for. We're playing for everything at this point. If we're not interested and we're not motivated now, why are we even doing this?
Yeah, he was sort of saying, sometimes we need almost like we need a reason to play, right? And he goes, and we shouldn't need a reason. We should be out there competing. I mean, Greg Vanney didn't pull any punches either afterwards. He was very blunt, very clear, and he was saying, that was a team without conviction, right? There was no conviction in the first half. There was no understanding. I mean, I'm gonna say, and why don't we just roll straight into it as well? Because I think we should start talking about this game. It's important, and there's some very important things to pull out of even just the starting lineup. Kevin Cabral started up top with Chicharito, and this was more, by the way, I think this was more of a 4-4-2 than the Galaxy have played in recent times, where I always give them crap for listing the 4-4-2 in the scene. This was more of a 4-4-2. I thought Cabral stayed higher in this game, paired up with Chicharito, and so there was something there. Efrain Alvarez was trying to reprise his role. Again, we talk about consistency and consistency issues. Efrain Alvarez has consistency issues. Victor Vasquez, Jonathan Dos Santos are my two red flags in this. We'll talk about them. Ryan Raveloson in there in central midfield, and then you had Hamalainen on the left at defense. Williams, Depew, and then Fisher on the right. Red flag. We can talk about him as well. Jonathan Bond in goal. For me, and it's very simple, Kevin, whenever I look at this lineup and I look at how the play sort of came out, I look at Jonathan Dos Santos and Victor Vasquez. Now, Greg Vanney said that both of those guys were sort of were playing with knocks in this game. And if you look at that first half, the midfield did absolutely nothing. And you would even put Raveloson in that bunch of saying they were not controlling the ball. They were not controlling the pace of play. Dallas was dictating everything. Dallas was shooting. Dallas was passing right through the middle against the Galaxy. And I would put Raveloson in that trouble spot, except that in the second half, whenever Raveloson got some actual help in midfield without Victor Vasquez and Jonathan Dos Santos in there, with Grand Sur in there, which was a big upgrade, and then with Sebastian Lletget in there, all of a sudden the LA Galaxy were like, oh, we can play through the middle, no problems, and they had bite through the middle. I think if you want to blame Greg Vanney for starting Jonathan Dos Santos and Victor Vasquez with injuries or with knocks, and at this time of year everybody has them, Kevin, but if you want to blame him, that's something that I think is a reasonable thing to look at and say you knew these guys weren't 100% and you started them and you gave Dallas the impetus to move through the middle and run around people. And then we can talk about Fisher as well, and Fisher did not have a good game.
Well, and you talk about starting those two guys in the midfield, knowing that Julian Araujo is not there.
Right.
Julian Araujo, let's face it, Julian Araujo cleans up a lot of people's messes that he didn't get credit for, and he wasn't there to clean up these messes.
Yeah, suspended due to yellow cards. I wanted to make sure everybody knew that's what the reason. Suspended due to yellow cards. It was something that MLS doesn't do a very good job of communicating. There should be a giant website that is easily found and easily clicked that says these are the guys who are on yellow card warning and these are the guys who, if they get another yellow card, they're out. We get that stuff, but the day before the game in order to try to figure that out.
It doesn't even have to be a giant website. Just a regular sized website would do it. But, so the fact that Araujo was there, a guy who's going to be really key down the stretch here. And when Sebastian Lletget talked about, it's going to come down to now, not talent, because he talked about Kansas City and Seattle, the next two opponents for the Galaxy, being very talented. He said talent kind of goes out the window now. It really comes down to who wants it more. And when you look at those next two games, Kansas City and Seattle are already in the playoffs. So clearly the Galaxy wants it more now. They're playing to get in. But here's an interesting stat. Of the 20 top players on the Galaxy in terms of minutes played this year, only 6 of them have ever played in an MLS playoff game, because we have so many Europeans now. I know that intellectually they understand what the playoffs is. They understand where we are in the season. They look at the calendar. They know what it means. But they haven't gone through it yet. And Sasha Kleshton, with 17 playoff games, is the leader in the clubhouse here with the playoff experience. I think he's a guy that he's been key already, but I think he's even going to be more key to keep guys focused. This is not the 30th game of the season. This is our first playoff game coming up, the 31st game. This is our first playoff game against Kansas City. The Galaxy, we're going to talk about this, I know, but I'll start it now. The Galaxy control their own destiny, but when you control your own destiny, that means you have to be in control. If the Galaxy win out, if the Galaxy get all 9 points from their last 3 games, they are in the playoffs. If they give back even 1 point, they risk the chance of falling out. And I know you're going to talk about how that's mathematically correct, but probably not realistic. Well, you never know. Real Salt Lake has a game in hand. They could get 12 points.
They could.
And if they get 12 points, the Galaxy need to get 9 to hold them off. Then we have Minnesota behind them. They're going to play the Galaxy the last game of the season. Do you really want to come down to a winner-take-all game at the end of the season? I'm not so sure how the Galaxy would react to that. I don't see this team as being a team that plays very well under that kind of pressure. So, yes, realistically, the Galaxy aren't going to need 9 points. But mathematically, right now, if they want to get in and they want to continue to control their own destiny, they need that. If they give back 2 points, if they get a draw in Sporting Kansas City, for example, they could potentially need help to get in.
Potentially. I mean, that's the real thing, as we've seen with the results throughout the Western Conference. And by the way, everybody wants to talk about how bad the Galaxy have played this year. And I can agree, at times they've looked very poor. They look like a team that doesn't quite understand the exact effort levels sometimes that they need to put out in order to take bad teams, right? It's easy whenever you play good teams that are supposed to be better than you. You have to give all-out effort. There is some mixing and matching. Like whenever they played Houston, there was, let's give a lot of effort early on and put this game away and make it go away, Kevin, right? And that's what they did against Houston. They were successful with that. With Dallas, I think that they almost coasted out and sort of said, okay, we just need to take it easy. This is game 3 of 3. And I also say, before I get too much further, we as a press corps and as a fan base have not valued or have undervalued how difficult it is to play game 3 of 3, because every time the Galaxy have played game 3 of 3, they have struggled, right? And they're going into Sporting Kansas City on game 4 of 4 whenever you look at and
the reason is look at the core of that team. They're all, Chicharito, Dos Santos. These are all older guys.
Yes.
Vasquez, the guys that they really rely on. Yes, Cabral's 21 or whatever he is. Grancier's young. Ravelison's a little bit up there. If they use Koulibaly, he's a little bit up there. There is you think of this team as being new together, and they are, but some of these guys have a little bit of mileage on them.
Yeah, it does. And certainly, and again, there's inexperience as this team, like what effort it takes for this team to sort of put together. And so I think you see that through all this. But, also having said all this, and as badly as the Galaxy have played in situations, and certainly the first half against this Dallas team was one of the most pathetic efforts I've seen all this year. And so you look at all these things, you sort of pay attention to them and say, but the LA Galaxy are still a top 10 team in Major League Soccer right now, Kevin. They're number 9 in overall supporter shield, and you can sort of put that however you want, but you could even value them possibly above some other Eastern Conference teams and say they're even better than 9th overall in the league. There are not that many good or great teams in Major League Soccer this year. There just aren't. Now, unfortunately for the Galaxy, they get to play 2 of the good teams right now.
And 4 of the teams that are better than them are ahead of them in the standings, which is why they're in this need to win out sort of position.
Yep, absolutely. No, it is. Let's get to some questions real quick. Aaron gave us a $5 super chat and says, do you think Melia could be suspended retroactively for the game the Galaxy play against Sporting Kansas City on Wednesday? Yes, and we'll talk about that a little bit further.
Has to be.
I don't think there's any choice. But again, we'll talk about it a little bit further. And then a big one, the Herb Memorial Fund that we always put together. Herb gave us a $50 super chat. That's 50, wow. Kevin, in case you're not paying attention. The great news about this, Kevin, is that you won't see any of that, so I get to keep all of that and make things run. But I will show it to you one time in my bank account. It'll be a lot of fun for you.
That'll be good.
Herb says, catching my first live show in a long time. Shout out to Josh and Mr. Baxter. Hey Josh, is the Herb Memorial still a thing? I think we need to make a Herb Memorial like in the studio somewhere. We're going to get it like a little doll that looks exactly like Herb and put a little plaque underneath it, and we call it the Herb Memorial. He's not dead, obviously. He just gave us $50, but that's part of the fun. So yeah, that's sort of where we're going. Thanks, Herb. We appreciate it. Big shout out.
I'm Mr. He calls you by your first name.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
respect.
That's
respect for his elders.
It wasn't the respect thing. He's just afraid of you, as most people should be.
And unless he's dead, I'm his elder because I'm older than everybody.
Yeah, you're older than me, so I mean, you're winning that race in here. But no, saying all that, this is.
I went to high school with God. He's in my yearbook.
I'm sure he is. No, if you look at this though, and trying to say like you're saying, oh well, the Galaxy might need help. Well, there's been no consistency throughout the Western Conference, so there's very little chance that all the teams that are around the LA Galaxy are going to win out all of their games. And I went through, and the camera doesn't show it, and it probably not, but I have 7 Post-it notes in front of me right now, Kevin. 7 that have everybody's schedule. I have Portland's schedule, Vancouver's schedule, RSL's schedule, the Galaxy schedule, SKC, Seattle, and Minnesota. I did all of those because I think those ones are the most likely of people around the Galaxy to sort of move and dodge. And you talked about RSL. RSL is basically going to play, and they played on Saturday, and then they have a game coming up on Wednesday. But if you go Saturday, Wednesday, Sunday, that's how they finish. They basically finish out game 5 of 5 on Sunday. So they're going to play in every single window, where the Galaxy do not play in every single window. Galaxy only have 3 games left. RSL has 4 games left. Same with Sporting Kansas City. They play 5 of 5. They're 5 of 5, and it might even be 6 of 6. I didn't even go back that far, but they play 5 of 5. Their 5th game in every window. They go Wednesday, Sunday to close it out. So they have 4 games.
Irrelevant. The Galaxy can't catch them no matter what they do. They get in a plane crash, and they can't catch them.
But do they play them? Oh, they do play them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So then, maybe it might be relevant. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just putting a show together here. Maybe the team the Galaxy play the next on Wednesday, maybe it'll be relevant. I don't know. Could be. But
you could do all the math you want, and I could still show you that if Sporting can't, if Real Salt Lake loses one of those games but wins the other 3, the Galaxy still need more than 7 points to get in, because Salt Lake would pass them.
Again, assuming that everybody else around the Galaxy would also win and do stuff the same as the Galaxy, more or better than the Galaxy. That's you keep assuming basically that it's RSL. It could be RSL. It could be Vancouver. It could be Portland. It could be, let's see, what's my other team in there? Vancouver, RSL, Minnesota. Any of those teams could stumble right now and also fall faster than the LA Galaxy if the Galaxy don't get any points out of this.
What did you say? They need 51 points. 50, you said.
I said 51 earlier. As it looks like it's shaping up now, I think 50. Actually, I think 49 may even do it. But that's
still a point from 2 of the 3 games.
It is
points in 2 of the 3 games, and
still,
one of them has to be a win.
You still need something, but also that revolves around other things happening, right? The whole deal.
What's the most likely game they win?
Minnesota, the last one.
So they get a point from the other 2. That means they come into a winner-take-all. It would be winner-take-all. That Minnesota or Galaxy, whoever wins, goes to the playoffs.
Could be.
I just with this
At
team,
home.
I just don't want to. I just don't want to roll that dice with this team.
You don't have a choice, Kevin. I like how you think there's a choice in any of this. There's not a choice.
If they get their 4 points from the first 2 games,
there's almost a 0% chance that the Galaxy get more than 2 points from the first 2 games that they have against Seattle and Sporting Kansas City. You realize
this is where we're different. I'm an optimist, and you're a pessimist.
I'm not. This is realism. This is exactly any big game the Galaxy have played. Let's talk about all the big games the Galaxy have played so far this year, right? Let's talk about the Seattle game, where the first time they played the Seattle, they lost. Let's talk about the Sporting Kansas City game they played at home. That was this is going to be a good game. They lost that game too, right? Let's talk about they go down to FC Dallas and lose 4-0. This is not a team that has played in any sort of big game or games where they're expected to do well, right? They have not. Outside of the Portland game that they just won, right? That was a big game. It was a big win. That's the first time, I think, almost all season they beat somebody who was actually above them in the standings.
But we agree that they suck in big games, and now we're going to say, it's all going to come down to the 34th game of the season, hence a big game, and it is at home. But wow, I just don't feel good in that situation.
But again, I mean,
yes, don't have a choice.
Yes. There's the tiniest of possibilities that the Galaxy could go. By the way, if I told you right now, Kevin, that you wouldn't have to play the game and the Galaxy would get 1 point out of the Sporting Kansas City game, right? And I told you right now that you get 1 point out of the Seattle game, so you get 2 points. You didn't have to play either of these games, but knowing that you would have to play Minnesota at the end to do it, everybody in here would jump up and down and say, "Take it, 100%."
Here's where I'm going to get optimistic again and say that I think the Galaxy have a chance in Seattle or in Kansas City. I know it's a tough place for them to play, but Kansas City going to have their backup goalkeeper going. We assume they're missing a couple other players to injury. Mm-hmm. So they won't have those guys. Again, the Sebastian Lletget line, the Galaxy have everything to play for. Sporting Kansas City is already in the playoffs, which is why they're resting injured players and getting ready for the playoffs. Galaxy, it's not far-fetched to think the Galaxy could get a win there. Then they go to Seattle. Here's why
it's not far-fetched. Can we not preview the SK? You're going to ruin my preview for my SKC game where I tell you that the Galaxy don't win in SKC. Do I need to go there already?
No,
they don't win.
when I say they're going to win, then everybody knows you're going to say they don't win because we never agree on anything, which is
but I want
part
everybody
of the charm of our relationship.
But I want everybody to realize that you and I started arguing about this before we started recording, and it's just carried over now because I thought you were ridiculous. I'm like, this is ridiculous, and then you're like, oh, well, let's save it for the pod, so we have, and we've just carried it right over.
Well, and here's why I think they have a chance in Seattle. Yes, difficult place to play on turf. I talked to Garth Langaway today, the general manager of the Sounders. We talked about a lot of other different things, but at the
Lagerway, Garth
that guy.
Lagerway, yes,
that guy, yeah.
Can we tell them about Malia Emma before we start?
No,
Please.
No, we can't.
Please.
We can't. No,
Please. Kevin.
You want me to say Abramovich again?
No, it's Ibrahimovic.
No, I was talking about the Chelsea owner.
Oh, okay. So before we started the show, Kevin's like, "Hey, we're going to talk about Malia." And I'm like, Malia? I go, you mean Malia Emma? What about her? What happened? What did she do?
She's awesome. She's awesome.
She's awesome. That's why, the little, the tiny little national anthem singer that sings. And I'm like, what did she do? He's like, no, the goalkeeper for Sporting Kansas. I'm like, you mean Melia? And he's like, yeah, that guy. That's the guy.
That's why I work in a written medium and I don't speak. So anyway, I talked to the Seattle GM, whose name will go unpronounced. Mm-hmm. And he's telling me that they've had some injury problems this year, as we know. Nicholas Lodeiro, Jordan Morris, both appear to be they're training now. They're getting ready for the playoffs. They hope to be ready to play in the playoff opener. Raul Ruidiaz hasn't played since September. He's coming back. That could be and Garth told me that he wants to get these guys on the field before the playoffs, just a little audition. That would be the game perhaps to do that. It's a home game. They're already in the playoffs. They're pretty close to clinching home field advantage. Maybe they could have that done before they play the Galaxy. That might be the game when they bring out some of these injured guys and let them run around a little bit. That opens up the possibility for the Galaxy. I'm not saying the Galaxy go in favored. I'm just saying that might be a place where they could steal some points. If Seattle is already looking forward to getting these guys ready for the playoffs, that makes it a more winnable game for the Galaxy. I'm not predicting they will, but I could see them coming home from this little road trip with 4 points. And that gets them to 50, and hence they're in the playoffs.
Yeah,
see how that works?
I said it whenever there were 6 games left. If the Galaxy wanted to guarantee their spot in the playoffs, they just win all 6 games, right? I didn't expect that they would, go and start actually beating Portland, because that team so far had shown that they weren't able to do that, but they did. They beat Portland. They went to Houston. They beat Houston. They should have beat Dallas. I know we were actually talking about that game for a little while. That was something maybe we should return to. They beat Dallas. Ultimately this is where the rubber meets the road. You can go through and point to a lot of things during the season of the Galaxy giving back points whenever they had a chance. I'll go back to something Greg Vanney said, and we talked about, Sporting Kansas City, and maybe it was the loss after Sporting Kansas City, or one of the guys, maybe Chicharito said it, or he wasn't against Sporting Kansas City because he was injured for that game. But you go back and you look at it and you say, at one point, Greg says, I take that we weren't ready to take that next step. Remember, the Galaxy were going to possibly climb into second place. I think at one point they were, this is your chance to jump somebody and get into second place in the Western Conference. And Greg said, it just shows that we're not ready to win that big game yet, to not do it. And he goes, but hopefully next time we will be. And now this is it. So all this stuff, all the winning, all the losing, if you're an optimistic person, Kevin, you say that the Galaxy have learned their lessons through all of this, right? They have taken their bumps, their knocks, they've understood what has happened and how things can go bad, and they understand how things can go well. So they have all this knowledge now that they've acquired over 31 games in Major League Soccer, doing all the things that they're supposed to be doing. So they have all these things. They have these tools. So now is the time to put all those tools to use.
Well, let me ask you, Eeyore, since you're accenting the negative, on all your little Post-it notes there, what happens if the Galaxy don't get any points from these 2 games and come back home to play Minnesota in the final game of the season with 46 points? Do they still have a chance?
By the way, I did no math involved, but yes, they technically should. Now, it's going to depend on a lot of things that happen from here on out, right? There's a lot of things, but the Western Conference has shown that the people around the LA Galaxy are not consistent. So I don't think you can sit there and say...
Well, the Galaxy's not consistent.
Exactly. And they're locked right in there with all the rest of them. So I don't think you can sit there and say, well, all those teams are going to win. They're not. And there are going to be games in here where that points get taken away from, different people. Like Minnesota has to play Vancouver. Well, somebody's either they both get 1 point or somebody's walking away with points and somebody didn't win points there, Kevin, right? So that's a chance for the Galaxy to move ahead, to do things, to advance. And even if they don't win, then maybe they only jump a point ahead. Or maybe they get 0 points and that person stays exactly where they were. So there are chances in all of these things to, one, give points and to take points whenever there are results in all these games. And it's the Western Conference. Everybody's playing everybody right now. So I expect all those things to sort of carry through with that.
Well, and the second part of this is just getting to the playoffs, I don't think is good enough.
Of course it is. Of course it is, because it's 2020. The LA Galaxy were one of the worst teams in Major League Soccer. Their defense is now the best defense that they put together in the last 4 years, which is still not a great thing, but it shows improvement. And you're talking about a team now that is in the playoffs. Of course it is.
No, it's a step forward, but I think a big club like the Galaxy should have a little more ambition than that. And my point was going to be, getting to the playoffs may not be enough if they can get to the playoffs with home field advantage, which is still... a
possibility. You could say it's a possibility.
The tiebreaker with Portland, if it was on goal differential, the Galaxy would be in fourth. They'd have a home playoff game. It's not goal differential; it's wins. They can still get there. If they have a home field advantage, I think they look pretty good. And if they win some of these games, again, if they close strong, and that's something that everybody will tell you. Sasha Clutch and I were talking about that the other day. If you close strongly, if you finish out the season feeling good about yourself, and with some of these things clicking that we've been waiting for, all of a sudden you become a dangerous team. We saw that with Portland remember the one year that Portland kind of snuck into the playoffs and went all the way to the MLS Cup final because they got hot at the right time.
Yep.
It could happen.
And Portland getting cold at the wrong time for them right now. So they're absolutely in a free fall whenever you look at points over that. By the way, the LA Galaxy with 7 points out of their last 3 games ties them for like second place in terms of how many points people picked up over their last 3 games. I think one team had 8 points and everybody else had then there were a couple other teams, or 3 or 4 teams, that had 7 points. So the 7 points was big out of the last 3 games. And I think that's, if you're looking at that, if the Galaxy went to Houston and got a draw, I think everybody would be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. You go on the road, you get a draw and that type of thing. The fact that they had 6 points and then gave 2 points away to Dallas at home sort of turns this all around. But even, yes, the LA Galaxy getting 2 more points would have been huge for them. Massive. But it still puts them in a position where they're going to have to get some points out of these last 3 games to really lock things up. You can't just lose out, and the Galaxy don't have that ability right now. Before we get too far, I want to get back to Dallas because we need to talk about this game so we can close it out and then get away from it. We talked about the first half. Fisher is not. Listen, this is a glimpse into the future for the LA Galaxy, right? Whenever you put O'Neal Fisher in at right back and Julian Araujo is not there, and when Julian Araujo gets sold eventually, the LA Galaxy are not going to have him on the team anymore, and they're going to have to try to find somebody to replace him. And I think everybody's going to understand that trying to find somebody to replace Julian Araujo on that right side is going to be a lot harder than you possibly imagine. Being Julian Araujo has been one of the best right backs in Major League Soccer. And probably, if I'm voting right now, gets my player of the year for the LA Galaxy and the defender of the year for the LA Galaxy.
Yeah, I don't even think that's a vote. I think that
it's always a vote. Trust me. There's that one reporter I'm talking about. He'll make it a vote.
Stop steal.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, that is a glimpse into the future. A Julian Araujo-less LA Galaxy is something that will happen in probably the nearer future. And you can see how much of an impact he makes whenever he's not bombing up and down the right-hand side. I thought Fisher had a better second half. Again, replace some guys in the midfield, do a better job of transitioning through it. As Greg Vanney said, be reckless with your attack. He said we were reckless at times with our attacks going forward because we needed 2 goals, and it doesn't matter if you lose by more goals, right? But
the big difference between the first half and the second half was halftime, because Greg Vanney read some people, perhaps everybody, the riot act. No one told us that, but reading between the lines of people we spoke to after the game, it was pretty clear that there were some raised voices in the Galaxy locker room at halftime.
Yeah, it seemed that way. Well, Vanney said, that he didn't even take any time talking about the first half. He goes, that was over with. He goes, that was done. It was about how we were going to, sort of get, how we were going to go forward, how we were going to, attack things in that second half. But that he was not pleased with that. I mean, he came out and talked to us. You could almost tell that, and I thought he did a good job of sort of holding it together for a while, but he seemed angry even in our post game, not outward towards us, and he was giving us the time and he was explaining things. He answered my question on verticality, which I've been trying to sort of figure out a way to ask in different ways throughout most of this, and he talks about being more direct, and he talks about being more goal side and being dangerous, and that's how you have to do it, is you have to get those vertical runs, and it's something the Galaxy seem allergic to unless they have their backs up against the wall for most of the time there, Kevin. But it's something that they've had success. When they have success scoring goals, they do get more vertical. They play guys into space and behind. They do a whole bunch of these things. So, you could certainly see them being more vertical in the second half. And then Sebastian Lletget, you talked about it, about all these things, but he also talked about trying to fit into the offense, right? And how he fits into the offense. And Greg Vanney talked about trying to get him out of his default. And this should make LA Galaxy and U.S. men's national team fans jump up and down when Vanney says, his default is to hold possession and to spin away from pressure and to do those things. And he goes, and I'm just trying to get Sebastian to realize that his default should be attack, go forward, and then fall back to those other things. And Seba agreed that his run to score the goal that eventually tied the game, he agreed that maybe he doesn't make that run, Kevin, if it was a couple weeks earlier. Maybe he doesn't, because him and Greg have been talking about this ongoing over and over about all these different things. So you hope that there's a light switch that sort of clicked on for Sebastian Lletget, because if the Galaxy can get a Sebastian Lletget that we have all seen him play, certainly with the U.S. men's national team at times and sometimes with the LA Galaxy, that forward attacking, finding passes in between lines, pushing forward, getting the team to move forward and attack, then the LA Galaxy are a different team than they've had for most of this year, and that could be one of those turning points that gets the Galaxy into the playoffs and beyond.
But they can't have that first half be repeated in any of these last three games. They can't put 45 minutes together like that.
No, if you put 45 minutes against Kansas City as you did against Dallas, you will be losing 3 or 4 to nothing. The game will be over, and there's no recovering from that against Sporting Kansas City at home. That's not going to be the way. So the Galaxy have to have intensity, upper level the entire time for this. There was some things in this too, though, Kevin. There was
extracurriculars.
There were some extracurriculars. Chicha got slapped in the face. 100% got slapped in the face. Saw the replay today. Just not very hard. Actually, if I'm looking at Baldomero Toledo, I think Kevin Stott was the VAR official. I agree with them that probably wasn't a red card. Now the dude still hits Chicha. And so that's something that I think we have to sort of take into account for like next time too, Kevin, is that, and fans have been bringing this up, and I've sort of been reticent to look at this just because I haven't felt it's always been true. But I'll tell you right now that it feels to me like Javier Hernandez, Chicharito, does not get protected very much by the referees in this league. And I think that they know that he's known for rolling and for diving a little bit. And I say to all the referees all the time, if you want diving and embellishment to stop, then start calling fouls when guys don't fall down. Because that never happens in any league, right? If you get kicked in the shins in the penalty box and you stay standing, they're just going to let you keep playing. There's very few times that they just point to the spot and say, oh yeah, that's still a penalty kick, which by the way it is. It's a foul even if you don't fall down. But referees know that if you fall down, that's usually the indication of a foul. And so that's why guys have to embellish and do all those things. So Chicharito was certainly getting in there. They changed a red card to a yellow card with VAR. There was the offside call as well on Joveljic that people are questioning. I've watched a whole bunch of replays on that now, and have sort of come to the conclusion that it was very close. And from my vantage point up in the press box, I thought he was off when it was played immediately. And it's a lot closer than that, but I don't think he's on. I don't think he's on by a clear and obvious error sort of judgment there. So I'm fine with that. I think that's okay. But overall, the Galaxy have to get used to this. I think they did okay against an FC Dallas team that Sebastian Lletget said their season's over. They were basically just trying to start stuff and get us out of our rhythm because we were going after them, and that makes sense. But yeah. I think referees need to do a better job protecting Javier Hernandez.
I agree with what Sebastian said. FC Dallas has been eliminated. It was nothing to play for. They were angry. I think they were frustrated. They definitely came after Chicharito, and they beat him a lot. I mean, he was, he, as you said, he sometimes tends to go down easily. There were a lot of times when it looked like the, WWE out there. He was getting beat up pretty bad. And you know what, Dallas, if you want to do that, that's great. But, next year, teams are going to remember that. And Ricardo Pepe is a young kid, and he's a little guy, and he's slight, and if you're going to beat up on Chicharito, don't be surprised if Pepe starts going down outside the 18 box.
That's funny. You think Pepe is going to stay in this league past this year? That was cute.
He's on the same plane with Araujo.
Yeah, he might be. He very well might be. When you look at it in expected goals and everything that sort of comes out, just as the stats, it was 1.8 to I think 1.6 or something like that. So it certainly lines up with the 2-2. By the way, both of Dallas's goals were good. There were no issues I had with that, except the LA Galaxy just couldn't play through the midfield. That midfield was pathetic, and Greg Vanney needs to be very worried about that going into a Sporting Kansas City team. He has to pick his best, most healthy sort of lineup that's going to be able to still compete against a dangerous Sporting Kansas City team. Can I go? I have one more soapbox thing for me on this Dallas game, and it's something that I complain about often, so I will complain about it here too. Note on the TV coverage. The TV coverage for this game was atrocious. It was very, very bad.
Well, it's TUDN, right?
Yeah, it was TUDN, and I think it was Unamas maybe, and it was also put on Twitter and all that stuff. But whoever was producing this, and not the on-air talent, I very rarely give them, I think everybody tries their hardest and does a good job, and I think those guys are fine. But whoever was producing this, I feel like they never watched soccer before. And if they did, maybe they just had a howler of a game and they just didn't realize what was going on. Maybe they're working from remotely and they're relying on people to tell them things and they're not telling it. But they couldn't get replays right. They did not get the Joveljic offside replay until like 10 minutes after that play had been over. So it was completely useless to sort of us up in the press box to try to figure out what was going on. The handball that happened on inside the penalty box, which Chicharito scored, his 14th goal. We're going to talk about him in a second. I thought that their coverage was there. They kept showing Chicharito scoring an offside goal over and over again. And as a matter of fact, they thought that the game was tied for like 10 minutes. So after Kevin, I didn't know this. Everybody was telling me this, that the announcers thought the game was 2-2 whenever Chicharito scored. And then whenever the Galaxy scored again, some people even thought it was 3-2 because the score had been 2-2 for so long. And then they changed it back.
Well, if you can't count to two, that's not good.
It needs to be better. It needs to be better. And I don't know if anybody else is paying attention to this or looking at this, right? But that needs to be better, and it's a huge big deal that coverage for any Major League Soccer team, whether it's national TV, whether it's local or anything else, needs to be produced by somebody who understands what it's supposed to look like, right? Whenever there's a goal scored that's offside, you need to go back to that offside call. You need to know where to look for the offside call. It's like they were looking at the Joveljic pass to Chicharito and thinking that was offside when everybody knew that was the good one. There was no problems with that. So, if you're upset about these things, then you have to let your voice be heard, because that's not good enough for anybody. That's not good enough for any broadcast. Has to be better, Kevin. Absolutely, 100%.
I can count to 2 goals, and then I still have all these other fingers left over. See how that works?
Yeah, see, that was very good. Very,
and there was
very
a big scoreboard there. It was huge, and it had the numbers and everything right on it.
It was, I mean,
one on each end.
You would think somebody would help them out. I don't know if they were calling that remotely or what the deal was. But yeah, it just wasn't good enough for me. And it was, the broadcast is usually very useful to us in the press box, Kevin. This one was useless to us. We kept looking for replays and there was nothing there. So,
you could also just watch the game as it's going on the field.
You absolutely can, but sometimes you miss the close calls and you want to see what they look like, right?
So do you want to talk about Emma Malia now and her goalkeeping?
No, because that would be part of the Sporting Kansas City preview, which is at the end of the show.
Okay.
This is probably your first show. I don't know how many hundreds of shows you've done.
I've been working 2DNA soccer broadcasts lately.
Don't be mean, Kevin. Don't be mean. I was trying to be critical. I don't want to be mean because don't want people to think I'm picking on it, but that was not good enough.
I'm trying not to curse because you get mad at me when I do.
Yes, you do. Absolutely. 100%.
I had to wash my mouth out with soap.
You did. Chicharito, by the way, gets his 14th goal. It was funny. He drew the penalty kick. He actually flicked the ball that went off the FC Dallas player's arm. Very obvious, clear handball, wasn't even a question. And then everybody was like, "Well, Sasha Kleshin's on the bench. Who's going to finish that?" That being Kleshin has been scoring all the penalty kicks.
They should have subbed him on.
Yeah, third of three game with a penalty kick in it. By the way.
By the way, the Chicharito goal that was called back for the offside, the one that stood on the broadcast forever. That was an amazing goal. That was a great shot.
Nice, sharp angle shot. 100%.
And so it didn't count on the scoreboard, but you know what? Chicharito remembers that. He remembers scoring. He knows how that felt. Felt great, I bet. And getting him going. We know that 99.9% of the offense goes through him. Getting him going. He scored a goal, came on a penalty kick. He lost a goal on a great play. It evens out a little bit.
Right.
Getting him going is really going to be. You talk about the midfield. Yes, that's more important. But getting Chicharito going could make up for a lot of the shortcomings the Galaxy have right now.
Here we go. Chicharito now has 14 goals in Major League Soccer. That puts him just 3 goals behind the leader for the Golden Boot race, Ola Kamara. Ola Kamara, by the way, has played 25 games. You have Chicharito, who has played in just 19 games. I'm going to show you the next chart, but it's something that you don't really need to pay attention to except for one number on it, and it's the minutes per goal. And what I just sort of wanted to point out is that Chicharito scoring every 100 gets a goal on average every 111 minutes. Right now, that's the most important one. So he needs 6 more goals, by the way, to even approach Landon Donovan or Robbie Keane's 20 goal seasons. So that's not something that you really need to pay attention to. But when you look at his minutes per goal, 111, 1 goal every 111 minutes is very much in the realm of the greats that the Galaxy have had. I mean, Zlatan Ibrahimovic averaging over 1 goal per game, 1.03 goals per game in the 2019 season. He scored a goal every 87 minutes. Carlos Ruiz scored a goal every 99 minutes. Ibrahimovic in 2018 scored 1 goal every 97 minutes. Eduardo Hurtado every 111 minutes. Robbie Keane 103 minutes. Landon Donovan 107 minutes. So just again, there's a big, huge mark against Chicharito, Kevin, obviously, because he was missed so many games, and that would have put him. But if you can sort of prognosticate or stretch that out into what it could have been for him, he is scoring at a rate among the LA Galaxy's best goal scorers in a single season, and that's something to keep paying attention to. With 3 games left, there's a guy who's going to probably get you 2 or 3 goals out of these next 3 games. Hopefully more, by the way. Say Chicharito has a hat trick, Kevin. All of a sudden he's tied for the Golden Boot, having played 6 less games than Ola Kamara and somewhat 10 games less than some other people.
But he has missed a lot of time in the last 2 seasons. What is that Sasha Kleshin said? His best ability is his availability.
100% agreed. It's a black mark against Chicharito. It absolutely is. I just want to still put it in perspective because it's important for everybody to pay attention to. You can't just sort of say, oh, well, he missed a whole bunch of time. Yes, but when he plays, when he's on the field, he scores goals. However you want to say it, he scores goals. Let's get to the team of the week as well. There's nobody you would notice here. Nobody on the LA Galaxy actually made the team of the week, Kevin, except on the bench.
However,
Sebastian Lletget made the quote-unquote bench for the team of the week. So that's something, and that means the LA Galaxy have had players last week and this week. Julian Araujo, I think, made the actual team of the week last week, and then Sasha Kleshin made the bench last week as well. So that's something to sort of look at as well. So that was.
Do you know who leads Speaking of the bench, do you know who leads the Galaxy in appearances off the bench this year? Career high for him.
Sasha Kleshin.
Yep, 15.
It's pretty impressive. You want to talk about I rarely like to dive into this except when it's very, very obvious. Sasha Kleshin is the heart and soul of the LA Galaxy. You can see it.
He's played 28 of their 30 games. Think about the guy's 36, and he doesn't. So he started 13 games, but you don't think of him as a starter. And then you realize how many times he's come off the bench. Add those together, 28 appearances.
It's impressive. It's
pretty impressive, yeah.
And when he comes out, and especially even in this game, even against
he was a spark. He didn't get a lot of attention.
Nope.
I understand that Lletget scored the goal, yes, and Chicharito the other one, and yada. But Kleshin came in and provided a real spark. And then once they got the tie, helped close it out.
Can you imagine being Greg Vanney trying to figure this out, by the way, for Sporting Kansas City? This is why I'm glad I don't make the big bucks to try to figure these things out in terms of who the best lineup is, because
you got $50 tonight. What do you want?
Yeah, well, those are the big bucks. You're right. I just looking at it and saying Victor Vasquez is clearly one of your best players whenever he's healthy, whenever he's playing on the field. How much rest will he get in order to play in Sporting Kansas City? Is even starting him in Sporting Kansas City a smart thing to do? Those are things that you sort of look at and say, okay, what's going to be, are you going to start JDS? Are you going to, what are you going to restart Leggett, even though he played the last, 45 minutes? There are some really big questions coming up from Sporting Kansas City. So it's just looking at the Dallas game and sort of the questions that arise from it in terms of their form and their fitness, Kevin. I feel like Vanney's lineup choice against Sporting Kansas City is very, very important to how they quote unquote win that game.
But then after that, there's no international break. There's no rest. They do have the carpet in Seattle to worry about. But I think those last 2 games, you start your best 11 guys. There's no squad rotation. There's nothing. Well,
you're going to get almost, I think, 5 days or 4 days between. It's going to be 5 games, but it's 4 games between travel heading up to Seattle. So that's an actual rest and break for these guys.
Yeah.
They'll have 4 days to actually just get back and do their thing. There's just no rest between these next ones. So that'll be interesting to look. I want to talk about Dennis DeClosa as well. Tom Bogert from MLSsoccer.com was talking about the Houston Dynamo looking for a general manager and mentioned LA Galaxy GM Dennis DeClosa and Columbus Crew SC technical director Pat Onstad are the 2 front runners, sources tell. First of all, I would like to say that I think we've been fairly on top of this, Kevin, for most of the
we already knew.
Yeah, it was one of those things where you're sort of saying, all right, let's sort of see, what's going to happen with this and how it goes. Now we know that, and Tom, by the way, says this in his article and in his tweets, that we know Dennis DeClosa and the LA Galaxy, we know the Galaxy hold an option on Dennis DeClosa's contract. And so we also know that perhaps it's been a little slower than everybody expected in terms of them talking to Dennis DeClosa and thinking about possibly extending this, right? Now, I'm of the opinion that the LA Galaxy seem to have had almost very little interest in even having those talks or having that discussion about what was going to happen next year. But I guess if you're the LA Galaxy, you have that option, Kevin. It's your option all the way up until whenever his contract is over, unless he decides to go ahead and take another job and says, I'll just cancel the last year of the contract. Like there's ways to do this and ways to go about it, but for me, looking at Dennis DeClosa, clearly he's going to make sure he has options going forward. He doesn't want to be without a job whenever this comes around next year. So I will tell you the only update I can give you from this, and I put out a tweet whenever Tom Bogert put this out. The only update I can give you is that it seems that the LA Galaxy and Dennis DeClosa have at least preliminarily approached the subject. So, it's far from over is basically what I want to say. I'm not sure that either of them really wants to go down this path at this point, to renew or to extend that option, Kevin, but it's well within possibility that it does happen. So
there's a lot of moving parts, and it depends on which side you're talking to. Dennis wants to come back. He loves it here. His family likes it here. He's enjoying himself. He wants to come back. He feels like there are some things that he can do to help this team get better. The Galaxy, my understanding is the Galaxy have talked to him, but they haven't been very sincere. That it's almost been formulative, we're doing this, but we're really not doing it. They certainly, I don't think, in my mind, from what I've heard of the talk, certainly have not shown Dennis the respect that he deserves. Perhaps maybe not for what he's done here, if you want to make that argument, but for his career. I mean, he is a guy who deserves some respect. That's why they brought him in. Underlying all of that, sort of the dance. Dennis, I want to come back, but I have to keep my options open. The Galaxy, we're talking to you, but we're really not talking to you. That's behind all that is what Greg Vanney wants. Greg Vanney showed in Toronto that he wants to run the whole thing. He wants to be in charge of the team on the field and then creating the team, just as Bruce Arena did. And it's a good model. We've seen a lot of.
I would disagree with that, by the way. It's a good model for a few people, not necessarily everyone.
No. Yes, you have to. But Greg has shown he can do that, and he wants to do that. I think Peter Vermeers has done that at times, correct. And Bruce Arena is great at it. Bruce gets the players he wants and then puts them on the field and gets out of them what he had anticipated he would. He's a master at it. It is definitely a kind of an old school thing, but Greg Vanney did well with it in Toronto. So you kind of look at it. Can Greg use some help? Yeah, certainly. I mean, can Dennis be that loyal assistant and not have to throw himself into the forefront of everything? His personality seems to certainly say that he can definitely do that and would be very good at it. Then it comes down to, well, if he's not really the general manager, if he's the assistant general manager, Do we change his title? What about his pay?
I
There's
don't-
a lot of things.
I don't
there.
think that's happening, by the way. I just, in terms of the people that I've talked to, that if Dennis comes back, it'll be as general manager. That seems to be clear, because otherwise I think Dennis would move. Now, I saw some people, by the way, talking about Dennis DeClosa going to Houston, right? And this, he's clearly in line to be able to pick up that Houston job. And somebody
Very
said,
good place for him.
see, that's what I would say. But people were saying, oh, no, that's a horrible place for him. I'm like, what are you talking about? I go, you have a team that is very much linked with the Latino community in Houston. You have a close tie with Mexico there. Dennis's expertise comes with, that knowledge of Mexico and the knowledge of players. He's going to have to be budget conscious. He'll have to figure it out. But you could imagine that he would be... he is one of those people who could do that, right? You tell him how much money you have, and Dennis is going to formulate a plan in order to work that, and investing in academy and a whole bunch of things that really could pay off for a team like Houston. Dennis DeClosa should be the front runner for that job if he's not going to be with the LA Galaxy.
It's a much better fit than Cincinnati and some of the other places where his name has been mentioned.
Yeah, and I think that's true. That would one at least make sense to me. And I think that if you're the LA Galaxy, you should realize that's a real option for him. So if it's going to go sideways, then you can make it go sideways, and he can end up in Houston, and that's someplace for him to go. So I just wanted to touch on that because we've been talking about it a lot and doing the whole things. Again, I think that. I think there's certainly some questions whether about Tim Bazbachenko in Toronto was is one of those things that very well could go down. By the way, I'm reading Feel the Berm just put up a tweet from Stu Holden. It looks like perhaps the Houston Dynamo are set to announce that Pat Onstad will be their new GM. Is that real, Feel the Berm? Can you let me know in chat room, because we're on here. I'm not on Twitter.
I had heard that earlier as well, but it hadn't been announced yet.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be surprising me. But by the way, that again, if you're looking at leverage and which way things go and the whole thing, so he tweeted it this afternoon, apparently. So that's one of those things that, hey, if Onstad takes it and can do that, then then that sort of puts, again, if you're looking for leverage in this case, I don't know what leverage the LA Galaxy would want. They hold the option. They have all the leverage in terms of whether they want him back or not. But it's about Dennis and sort of, making sure that he has a place to go to. So we'll keep an eye on it and sort of take a look at it and pay attention to that. So I just think it's really interesting what's happening inside that front office while all of this is going on, while the march towards, the playoffs is continuing. The LA Galaxy, again, as we've said many times, are focusing on that 2022 season as well. You have to start planning now. You have to understand which contracts are coming back, who you're going to target in the offseason, because that offseason could be 3 games away, Kevin. That offseason could start soon.
And if you're Dennis or Greg, who's involved in these talks, certainly, or at least his opinions being solicited, you don't want this to become a distraction at this time of year. I mean, the last thing Dennis wants, even if Dennis knows right now he's out of here, the last thing he wants is to leave without getting his team in the playoffs.
Yep.
That looks good on the resume.
Yeah, it looks very good on the resume. So everybody wants this team to go to the playoffs, certainly. Real quick, the schedule coming up for the LA Galaxy, coming up on Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. It's Kansas City versus the LA Galaxy, and then it'll be November 1st, so a Monday night game. Sunday is Halloween, October 31st, and then 11/1 is Seattle versus LA Galaxy. So a Monday night game, because MLS is weird, nationally televised. No, it's a Spectrum game, so it doesn't even matter.
Monday Night Football.
Fun, good times. 11/7/21 is the final game. That's decision day. It's a 3 p.m. kickoff at Dignity Health Sports Park, hosting against Minnesota. Just quickly, the schedule for the next, there's a game tomorrow. LAFC will play Seattle. They'll host Seattle, I should say, on a Tuesday night. So Seattle will go play Tuesday, Monday. Whenever you look at the schedule, because they'll play Tuesday. And I don't think they play for the rest of the week on that. And I actually have my Seattle schedule over here. Yeah, it is. They will play LAFC, and then they will play they will host the LA Galaxy. So
they get an extra day of rest.
They do. They get an extra day of rest. The Galaxy have to travel. So really, when you think about it, it's almost two less days of prep for the LA Galaxy than Seattle does. But Seattle also is traveling down to LA, so they have to travel back. Less of a concern whenever you have the charters, and you can fly whenever you want. Absolutely. I was going to go over some of the stats, and then the LA Galaxy. Let me tell you this, just in terms. The LA Galaxy are underperforming at home, Kevin. On average, the LA Galaxy around 1.89 points per game Whenever you look at their average across all their seasons, right now they're 1.75 points per game at home, so they're underperforming at home. They only have one home game left to sort of change that and do it, and they're at least average or just barely above average, 1.20 points per game on the road. 1.18 points per game is their average. So the LA Galaxy on the road, but with 2 games on the road, possibility of not getting points, you could see them drop below that line as well. So this Galaxy team is just flirting with averageness, if that's a word. It's not, but that's,
mediocrity.
Yeah, mediocrity is correct. But again, look at the entire league, and that should be the story of 2021 is mediocrity. And some mediocre team is going to make it to the MLS playoffs, and some mediocre team is going to win an MLS playoff game too.
More than half the teams make the playoffs. I'm sorry. I know I'm really old school, but kids, get off my lawn. That's just too much. If you're in the bottom half of the table, you should not be in the playoffs.
Agreed up to a certain point, except that that's what they said. So everybody gets to go in. And in this particular case, it would still be tight, even if they only allowed, five teams in, Kevin. There would be 6 teams playing for that last spot. And sort of.
Well, no, it adds to the excitement. I get it. But I mean, teams under 500 are going to go in. And by the way, what about this attendance? What's going on with the attendance? They announced 15,000. There wasn't 15,000 in the building.
Well, and there hasn't been. I mean, they've been under. Listen, tickets distributed. Even you make this argument all the time. Tickets distributed, not people there. So that is now. Were there 13,000 people there? Possibly. It was probably pretty close. The game did fill up as the first half sort of went on. So I'll give that. I think some people left after the first half too. Because
but what are they going to do tomorrow? Tuesday night at Bank of California, and then Monday night at Dignity Health Sports Park. I just can't imagine those are going to do better than the weekend crowds.
Monday will be up in Seattle, FYI.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So it won't really matter. There'll be nobody at Dignity Health Sports Park.
I imagine
really
just
bad crowd.
A handful, smattering of people.
People listening to this are going to go there and now expect the game.
There'll be 5 people there then.
Don't listen to the Panda.
As that
goes.
goes.
No clue what's going on.
No, I mean, certainly somebody asked. I have to think that and we even talked about this. It's like it's really hard to talk about attendance whenever there's still a pandemic going on and whenever they have these restrictions and all these different things. And it's like, I want to talk about it because it's something that's there, but I don't know how real it is or how fake it is. Plus, the Dodgers were playing. Like, there's reasons I can talk my way around it. It's still not good, by the way. The Galaxy are like 10,000 short of where they should be on a Saturday night game.
Well, I really want to write about it because there is something going on, but I can't because it's unfair to do it now.
It is
with the pandemic.
It is.
It's unfair to say the Galaxy, you're not getting people to feel safe to come out to the stadium. That's not their job.
Yeah,
people will come back when they feel safe. I'm just a little surprised because we had been led to believe there was this pent up desire. to see live soccer, and there was a little bit. There was a bump in the middle of the season, but it's just gone away.
You mean whenever we thought we all got vaccinated, we thought it was over, and then we realized, it's not quite over. So I mean, I can understand sort of the mindset behind some of that. It doesn't surprise me. None of that surprises me. Let me get to one more stat before we sort of let things go. The LA Galaxy score first or allow the first goal. Guess what? It continues. Galaxy 1-9-5. Whenever they allow the first goal. Got some points. 5th time they got points out of allowing the first goal. So that's good for them. But still, it remains to be seen. I was talking to some people about this SKC game, and I said it's very simple for the LA Galaxy. Score first, and you have a chance. If the Galaxy allow Sporting Kansas City to score first, it's over. They're not winning that game. So 12-2-2 whenever the LA Galaxy score the first goal. That's a huge, huge difference.
But we do have the WrestleMania factor that...
Tim Melia, you wanted me to say his name because you...
Yeah, I did.
Emma
Malia in goal.
Yeah, exactly. Tim
if
Melia.
You watch that, even The Rock tweeted out that there had to... He saw the video and was talking about how it was a WWE takedown and said, I'm assuming this player got a red card for that. Nope, don't assume.
And they had VAR, by the way. So,
there is no excuse for that. It was violent. It was unnecessary.
It's clear. It's clear and obvious. A clear and obvious mistake. The disciplinary committee will get a chance to look at it, and they'll get a chance to go ahead and suspend.
It could be a multiple game suspension. I would not be surprised if it was 2.
I think
not
2.
3, but 2.
I think 2. I think 2 is probably the right ones. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to sort of see where this goes. But looking at this game, this is the big one, Kevin. We talk about the big games. This is a big game for the LA Galaxy. Sporting Kansas City is 16-7-7, 55 points, 13-11-7 for the LA Galaxy, 46 points. Game will be on October 27th. This is a Wednesday. 5:30 p.m. is when the TV start time starts. It's a Fox Sports 1 and Fox Deportes broadcast. This was my alert. Kickoff is at 5:55, so it's one of those 25-minute lead-in games. So usually we've been seeing 7 or 8-minute lead-in games. No, Fox is going to have a 25-minute lead-in, so closer to 6 p.m. than it is to 5:30. So everybody keep that in mind.
Kansas City is playing for the possibility of home field advantage throughout the playoffs on the Western Conference side. And, whichever team gets home field advantage in the playoffs, they would get to host MLS Cup final unless New England makes it, because they'll finish ahead of everybody else over there.
Right.
So, I mean, they're playing for something. But as you mentioned when you did your research earlier today, their backup goalkeeper is good, but hasn't played much lately.
Yeah, it has not. John Pulskamp would be the backup to Tim Melia, and we do expect a disciplinary committee response probably tomorrow on a Tuesday, whenever that comes in. But I mean, SKC also has. Listen, we're going to say they have a bunch of injured players. Danny Polito is injured. Saloui is injured as well. Daniel Saloui, he's day to day with an ankle. Sort of talking to some people, they don't think he'll be back. They don't think Polito will be back, but they could show up in this game, but it's unlikely. There's some other question marks in this, but this is also a team that. And by the way, it was Alan Polito, isn't it? Not Danny Polito. Danny Polito was the guy I went to high school with. FYI,
he knows Emma Malia.
I'm sure he does. But whenever you look at this team, this is a team that just went up to Seattle and won. Now they won with some dubious things, right? But they won. They beat the number 1 team in the Western Conference. Seattle starting to slip a little bit. We've seen this, giving up points where maybe you didn't expect them to give up points. This was a big game for Seattle. They slipped. Sporting Kansas City took it away. They did it while these guys were injured. They did it, on the back of all these things. I was talking to Allie, who is sideline up there for Sporting Kansas City. She's awesome and always gives really good information. But we were talking, and she said, her biggest concern was that Sporting Kansas City plays every single window here on out, and that Peter Vermees does not like to rotate and does not like to sub people, and that he plays guys and he has a starting 11, and they're the guys who are going to play. You can't do that if you have 5 or 6 games to close out the season. You're going to have to rotate somewhere. So do they feel like they have a chance at home to rotate against the LA Galaxy, knowing they're at home, and that will sort of take them and give them an advantage? I don't know if that is one of those things that you could sort of look at. This is such a difficult game to predict because the Galaxy don't lose at Sporting Kansas City, but they don't always lose. Let's put it that way. Out of the 9 meetings that they've had so far, I was going to say 9 meetings since Sporting Kansas City changed names. Kevin, Sporting Kansas City from the Wizards, right, the Wiz, to Sporting Kansas City. Since they changed it, they've played 9 games at that stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say since they changed states.
Yeah, did they move over to state? Yeah, I guess they did.
Yeah,
they were playing
they're
over
in Kansas City, Kansas.
Yeah. And they were in Missouri before. So 9 meetings. SKC is 4-1-4 at home against the LA Galaxy. 4-1-4, which means, in my twisted math of ways, the LA Galaxy took points off of Sporting Kansas City the majority of the time at home, because they got points 5 times out of the 9 times that they played them at Sporting Kansas City. That's big if we're talking about getting points. If we're talking about trying to advance into this playoff position, and you need any point you can get. A point at Sporting Kansas City, would it be the best thing in the world? No, 3 points would be the best thing in the world. But 1 point gets you 1 point closer to making those playoffs. That gives you a chance possibly to beat Seattle. If you can't beat Seattle, you need to get a point. You need at least 1 point. You have to keep marching through this, because I think that if you look at 5 points from where they are, that puts them real close to where they need to be. So not losing is important, and let's see how the LA Galaxy react to not wanting to lose, but also still trying to play to win, Kevin. They can't be out there being careful either. They need points, and beating Sporting Kansas City on the road would give them those points.
Yeah, and of the 2 games, I think you'd probably say Sporting Kansas City without their starting goalkeeper is of the 2 road games, that's the one that you have the best chance in.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I think if the Galaxy get 4 points And you figure that they have to win a game for sure. If they win 2 games, they're in the playoffs. I think that 6 points definitely does it, Kevin, right? So we can keep looking at all these things and sort of take it, and you can say, you need points. You need to go against this. And this Sporting Kansas City team, again, they're coming off a short rest. They don't have a lot of time. RSL is going to have to really stretch down this stretch as well. Minnesota has some breaks in there, so I expect Minnesota with 3 games left to be sort of the Minnesota that we expect, but I think they're a weaker team than everybody thinks. We talked about Vancouver being sort of strong and pushing into some of these different places. So if we look at the Western Conference standings again, the LA Galaxy sitting up there at 46 points. RSL is just 4 points back, and they have a game in hand. They can win and sort of push things up and move things up in that direction. Vancouver 2 points behind. Minnesota 1 point behind. Portland, again, in a tailspin, is tied with the LA Galaxy on points. You need to see something from this LA Galaxy team against the Sporting Kansas City. If you can win the game, that's good. But if it's 1-1 in the 89th minute, then play for the point, Kevin. Get the point and get out of town, because the point is more important than 0 points at this point.
Well, and I was just looking at what I was looking at here was the weather. It doesn't look like the weather's going to be a factor. It's going to be around 50 degrees, but it doesn't look like there's going to be any snow or any rain. This time of year, that could be a factor in Kansas City. But, a little chilly, but I think 50 degrees, you can play in that.
Yeah, I think that there's absolutely a nice that's soccer weather, Kevin. You can play soccer weather. That's good sort of ways to do it. Johnny Russell on this team obviously is dangerous. They were talking about just a bunch of guys. Listen, Graham Zusi's out there and has been playing forever. I mean, Peter Vermees sort of going back to some of his stalwarts here as the season has progressed and sort of made its way in. And so you're looking at this team that is a very technical team. They're a little Jekyll and Mr. Hyde too, because I've seen them be very inconsistent, look like they can't play. And then I've also seen them play really strong against some good teams. So Sporting Kansas City, information from the LA Galaxy. Nick DePuy will be suspended for this game with yellow card accumulation, so he will be out. So if it's me, I'm putting Dan Steres back there with Derek Williams. That's me.
I would have put Dan Steres back in there a couple of games ago.
I think, and listen, DePuy had a bit of a nightmare in the first half as well. So that's something to also watch in this. So DePuy had a nightmare in the first half against FC Dallas. Otherwise, he's actually been very good positioning wise. But I think experience wise in this game, I think Dan Steres is the guy instead of Sega Coulibaly. And people say you're not allowed to make any Atari jokes. So yeah, you're done.
Hey, but another thing about Dan Steres, everybody knows I'm a big Dan Steres fan. There are only two Galaxy players in uniform that played in the last Bruce Arena playoff game going back to 2016. Dan Steres and Sebastian Lletget.
There you go. I mean, that you have the experience, and this is going to be an experience game because this is going to be a very, very difficult game for the Galaxy to get points from, let alone win. So keep that in mind as you sort of look at it as it goes down. Kevin, if you had to bet your entire house on this game, did the LA Galaxy get 3 points against Sporting Kansas City?
Yeah, I think they do.
Wow.
I'm going to say yeah.
Wow. I think that's way too confident. I don't even know. That's like tank top confidence. Have you ever heard? I forget which comedian it is.
You did not want to see me in a tank top.
Dan Soder is the guy who's the comedian who talks about tank top confidence. He goes like, I just want to walk around like in a tank top, like have that kind of confidence. And that's tank top confidence, saying the Galaxy are going to go in and sort of stab.
You asked me
Kansas
what
City.
I thought.
Yes, tank top confidence is what you gave me right there. It's almost confidence without any reason. That's what it feels like. I can't. I say a draw is a good result here, and I'm convinced that even 2 draws and a win will get the LA Galaxy into the playoffs. And I am allowed to revise that after the game, and I see all the results from the rest of the league, sort of going through that. So that's where I got it. I think a point will be good. Let's see how the LA Galaxy do. Again, some rotation things. No injuries outside of Villafania, but I don't really expect him to be. If he is healthy, that could possibly be something, but I don't think that Greg wants to throw Villafania into something when he hasn't played a whole bunch of minutes into a game like this. So,
but again, another guy that can get out there with some playoff experience, which knows what it's like going down this road. I know these guys played in Europe and they played in bigger leagues, right. But this is a whole different animal. This is almost like playing not to be relegated, kind of that kind of desperation. And not many players have even gone through that. So the more guys, the more Steres and Lletgets and Kleshtins and Villafanias you can get on the field now, or at least dress them so they're on the sidelines helping to explain things to people, the better off you're going to be.
LA Galaxy will travel to Kansas City on Tuesday. So we're recording on Monday night. They'll travel after they have training in the AM. They'll, of course, head back to the game after Wednesday night. They'll have Thursday off. They will train on Friday. They will train on Saturday, Sunday and then on Sunday afternoon, they will travel up to Seattle. There are no media calls scheduled with Greg Vanney in between now and whenever they get, we have them scheduled after the games, but there's no individual ones outside of that. So we'll just have the post games that are sort of scheduled coming up. So that's where the LA Galaxy sit. A really busy week of games. Ridiculous Tuesday night game, and then a whole bunch on Wednesday night, and then this weekend is just packed, jam full of games. And then, hey, boys and girls, this is it. 3 games left for the LA Galaxy. Most teams have 3 games left. Some teams have 4 games left, but everything will come to a head, and it will end on November 7th. So we're just weeks away from the end of the regular season, and then possibly the start of the playoffs for the LA Galaxy. So,
and you've called an audible and said there will be no more regular season from the Box podcast. So if my prediction goes south,
right,
I don't have to answer for it because no one will be here to talk to me.
So that is a scheduling update. We were trying to figure out when to do it and how to do it, but there's a Monday night game. Kevin can't do it on Tuesday night, which is perfectly understandable because I think LAFC is playing. You have to go cover that game, so you will do that one. And on Monday night, the Galaxy play against Seattle, and Sunday night is Halloween, which means we couldn't record. Plus, we'd have two before game. That doesn't make sense anyway. So that next week, whenever the Galaxy play on Monday night, there will be no Monday night show to sort of talk. Maybe we'll figure out something to do that day or on Twitter Spaces or something like that, just to sort of so that way you guys. I know everybody gets tired of hearing or gets scared whenever they don't hear my voice. I'm probably tired of hearing me was a better way to go. But anyway, so that's a scheduling update on that one as well. All right, Kevin, I think we're done. Anything else? You good?
At the end of the regular season, goodbye, everybody. It's like the last day of school for me.
Kevin, next time you come back and the LA Galaxy have made the playoffs because you have said so.
Because of the win in Kansas City.
Because of the win in Kansas City, then you'll be all set, and you will say, then we will be able to say, welcome to a special MLS Cup playoff edition of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box.
And I'll be coming to you for my new house because I bet this one for the win.
For the win. And
mansion.
Mansion. That'll be good. All right. Very good. All right. If you're looking for Mr. Kevin Baxter on Twitter, it's at KBaxter11. Head on over to LATimes.com where you can find all of Kevin's writings. Please check that out, LATimes.com, covering all the teams, Southern California men's national team, women's national team, all that fun stuff, LATimes.com. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at Guesman, JGUESMAN, and of course at Galaxy Podcast. Head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com. We have post-game press conference there for you. We have articles. We have all the stuff you need. These podcasts. Rate, reply, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Cornerofthegalaxy.com. We appreciate it. All right. For Mr. Kevin Panda Baxter, I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening to, you've been watching Corner of the Galaxy from the Box on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast. And be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.